The contents of this podcast are for informational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. If you have a specific health concern or condition, please consult a qualified healthcare professional for more details. Check out herguru.uk/disclaimers.
Hi, it's Cheryl and welcome to Work Stress Anxiety. One of the most striking moments, I think, in this episode is when Elka describes having a full-blown anxiety attack while mentally feeling fine. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, it's Cheryl and welcome to Work Stress Anxiety. So glad that you can join us today. We have Elka. Welcome, Elka.
Hi, Cheryl. Happy to be back.
Brilliant. Elka, today I was hoping that we could talk about some of the hidden sources of anxiety, especially around work stress and work anxiety for us high-functioning ladies who want to do well in the workplace, but also be good mums, be good carers, and just be good all-round human beings. So what I'm particularly interested in asking you is to perhaps maybe talk about the different sources of anxiety, and I suppose the understanding that and the realization that anxiety doesn't always come from one source.
Yeah, that when I started my my hunt and my excavation of where anxiety was coming from, because it can feel so mysterious. And it comes, I came up with 11 different sources. Now, it sounds like a lot. However, I'm going to list them. They're in the Anxiety Warrior series. And once you know them, you can just go through a checklist. And I do that. Now that I check in, I still get anxiety on occasion. I don't like it. To me, it's like the worst feeling ever. And substances we talked a little bit about in the first episode. Just be mindful, if you're dehydrated, you want to have a little bit of water. And it's interesting how substances can affect anxiety in our bodies. And sometimes, like I said, it's not obvious. And, you might think you're okay drinking, 6 cups of coffee or 2 cups. Maybe you're not. And maybe it's better with milk, or maybe it's better with a meal. I don't know. That's something you've got to figure out. And the same thing is, and the reason I say figure out is that each body is different. So my mom and my brother, they can have chocolate cake and very thick espresso coffee at night and fall asleep. Me, if I look at chocolate at 3:30, I'm going to be awake all night. So I'll have, my kombucha or a little piece of chocolate earlier because my body can metabolize it. It's just learning your body. Alcohol, sugar, all these things deplete your body of water. And that actually creates anxiety. People will have a drink thinking it'll relax them. It does temporarily, but then later creates anxiety. So that's how when I talk to people about some of these symptoms, we talk about, what are they putting into their bodies. So it's one, I know I spend a bit of time on it. It's one that we can control. And the cool thing about it, your body immediately has a reaction. I'm working with a client, getting them to sleep. And I said, the cool thing about what you're ingesting, your body's going to tell you within 24 hours. What's working. So you're going to know, and sometimes quicker, so you're going to know right away, and you do some experimenting. Physical is another place, and here's where some of that hidden part, we talked about that scale. However, if you're not sleeping well, so if you have 2 or 3 nights not sleeping, your mental health is in the toilet, literally. So one of the things you want to do is protect your sleep and make sure you get good sleep. The other is...
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a great sleeper. So And I protect my sleep. I'm a mama bear
Yes.
when it
No,
comes.
it's really interesting you say that, because I've done a recent episode about why I think sleep is, I think I called it the ultimate act of self-respect. That, we take for granted our bodies,
Yeah.
we take for granted sleep, and we almost treat sleep as something that's an inconvenience. So I'm really glad you said that, because I
Oh,
kind of feel really good about myself now, having,
yeah.
discussed that.
Oh yeah, sleep is a top priority. Energy is above sleep, and sleep is like way up there. So you want to have good sleep. So that means you need exercise. If you don't exercise, let me put it the other way. Anxiety or exercise helps reduce anxiety. Some food sensitivities will create anxiety. And again, that's individual, and it isn't always an allergy. There's food sensitivities. And it's interesting, Cheryl. I was having a good time with my daughter, and I remember this one time I just broke down in anxiety. I had a full blown anxiety attack, and the crazy part about it was mentally, I felt fine, and it was worrying my daughter and her grandma. And I just said, you guys, I'm fine, but my body is freaking out. And I learned about food sensitivities. So there were foods that I was eating, and a simple thing like avocado and almonds, my body goes, because my body's sensitive to it. So what happens, your energy goes into that, then you don't have energy for other things. So I went for some testing, and I found out some of my food sensitivities, and I've learned mushrooms is another one. So these things are things that you wouldn't think you'd have an allergic reaction to. And I wasn't allergic, but my body had a hard time breaking them down, turning me anxious. So it could be something like food sensitivities, also hormones. So depending, I've had people come in. So if you have a thyroid condition, let's say you sit there, and I've had people come in, they're going, Elka, I don't know, I'm in a good relationship, my finances are fine, I'm healthy, I'm freaking out. So we go through and, go through that checklist. And if all these things are okay, you may want to get some blood tests. Iron deficiency will make you feel as if you're depressed. A thyroid condition can actually give you physical anxiety symptoms. So, we gotta, it's like checking off these lists, right? So those are some of the top ones. The other ones I can just quickly go through, and then you can stop me and ask me questions about them. So reality, which we talked a little bit about, so that means decision making. It could be a deadline for a project. It could be performances or presentations, for business. It could be a test, or maybe an annual review. It could be court. So, doctor's appointments. So that's reality. Overstimulation is one. We call it, I don't know if you guys do, but FOMO, the fear of missing out. So it's that,
Yes, yeah.
We didn't have these. I didn't grow up with a phone, and, our messaging.
Oh, it's interesting you call it a phone. It's not really a phone, is it? It's one of the most powerful computers ever invented. I mean, you think an average phone now, sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay.
An average phone now is more powerful than the computers they had during the world wars to break all those codes.
Yeah.
So, we call it a phone, but it's certainly not a phone.
No. Yeah. And yeah, so, and I think you've probably had talks about, like, you don't want your phone on or near your bedroom. Like, you want to really create some peace, because we're really animals, and we need nature and calm and those vibrations. And when we've got all these radio waves and Wi-Fi going on, we just want to minimize some of that. So that overstimulation, so again, is just kind of where are you at in that chart? Social and cultural beliefs. So if you hear yourself saying, wow, I really should, or I must, and I think you talked a little bit about, as women, we want to be the good mothers, the good business people, the good professionals, and we start putting others' needs above our own. And a lot of that comes from cultural and social beliefs. Whatever time we have, we can always go into that. If we're not serving, if we're not taking care of, who are we? That can create a lot of stress. So if you find you're saying, wow, I really should do something, like maybe it's about having the family dinner, but you really don't want to, your body goes into anxiety, then you've got to look at, you still may decide to do it. You got to understand, where is that coming from? And, we talk about the angel and the devil in the cartoon. This inner voice, this self-doubt that comes along, that's another cause of anxiety, is, that's fueling anxiety and wanting to be, and I'm going to call it perfectionism, is how can we be good enough?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
the P word, I call it.
The what word? The P.
I call it the P word. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's okay to have high standards. Like I have high standards.
Absolutely.
Right. And
Yes.
I aspire for growth and improvement. However, how can I be in a place of balance and know that I'm showing up, it's good enough, right?
Yes.
Right? That I'm adding value, that it's good enough. And that's a bit of a battle. So that can create anxiety. And so the remaining three, one of them is the character trait of being highly sensitive. And that is a character trait, and it does come with anxiety and depression. However, the flip side of that is great intuition, very empathetic. Music and the arts move us differently and beautifully. So again, it's about this balance and understanding, which I write about in the books. Memories can create anxiety. So these memories and triggers, that some of them we know, others we don't. So something like smell or color or how somebody speaks can trigger us, and then we can have a somatic body reaction and not really have the upfront sense of it, if that makes sense. And then the last one is trauma, and that one is in our bodies, and that maybe the trauma, maybe you don't, but that's where you want to get some professional help. So
Cool. No, thank you for going through that list with us. I noted a couple of things that I would like to talk about a bit more.
sure.
And that the two things there was actually three things, but the third thing when you mentioned about like if you've got some sort of event that you've got to do like an interview or something, it just reminded me of me going to a job interview. I really wanted the job. I remember I practiced questions for I think weeks before the interview. And I remember going to the interview and obviously knowing that I was very nervous, and we had to do, this is a long time ago, so the equipment that we had like this overhead projection thing that we had to do a presentation with, and they couldn't get it to work. It was so funny. I was sitting there nervous as you are, and they were trying to sell it and they couldn't get it to work, and they sort of looked over at me and they said, Cheryl, do you know how to work this? And I went, yeah. And I got up and I started fiddling with things as you do. And the thing is, just by doing that, just by laughing at myself in that situation, all my nerves literally disappeared within seconds. I was laughing, joking. I said it, I was, saying it, this kind of thing happens all the time. You make everything, because it does. You set everything up, and then, you go to use the equipment and it just doesn't work. So I just wanted to just share that with you, that even something as important as a job interview, you can find a way to bring humor into that moment, and you might find that your anxiety just completely dissipates in that moment. But it was interesting you said iron. Now, I know for a fact that for most of my life, adult life, I have been iron deficient. So it's really interesting you say that. And I do my best, she says, to make sure, because I like to eat whole foods. I like to, if I'm going to get anything, I like to try and eat whole foods. So I'm getting it in a way that my body recognizes it as food.
Yeah.
So try and eat, beans and pulses, and I really love, I can't remember what it's called now, black treacle. Can't remember what it's called. But yeah, I love that. So I really try to make sure that I have iron. And I would encourage, I think a lot of working women, because of the way we eat, we don't tend to eat a lot of raw foods. We tend to eat quite a lot of cooked stuff, that we tend to have iron deficiencies, and we only find out when we get pregnant and they do all those tests, to make sure the baby's okay. So that's really interesting. But the other thing that you mentioned, please talk about iron. But the other thing was the overstimulation.
Yep.
That I'm really lucky, and I know that you live in the countryside as well. Within 5 minutes of where I live, it's total silence most of the time. And, I'm really fortunate we have horses and tractors and everything going by. But it's only in the last sort of 30 years, I'd say, that's how old I am, showing my age now, that I've realised that peace and quiet is something that we all need, that we all take it for granted, that we have shops around the corner and work is only 5 minutes away. But just peace, that literally just being able to hear crickets or birds.
Yeah, it's so important, because I think what's happened, and I was never a TV watcher even as a kid. I was just, my brothers would be sitting watching cartoons and I'm just outside. I always wanted to be outside. And what I noticed, and I still don't watch TV. Sometimes I'll watch a movie. However, what I've noticed, when you go in a shop and they have the TVs on, or you're waiting somewhere and they have like 6 or 7 things going on, like the bands, top and bottom, the weather over there, accommodator here, and then we're not wired to have that kind of stimulation, and that kind of got slowly got busier and busier. And when I do watch TV, let a snippet at a friend's place or a program that maybe I watched 20 years ago, there's flashes and lights, and when we're not used to it, we notice it. However, if you've kind of been watching certain programs, maybe it's almost like you got used to those flashing lights and those quick messages. I mean, TikTok, here's an interesting thing, because I work with students. I don't go on TikTok. I can't even stand it, and I apologize for people that get beautiful things out of it, but my one student, she was shaking. Her whole body was shaking. She didn't even notice as she's flipping through TikTok. And I just went, wow. And it was, what was fascinating to me, because we were doing a little workshop. I do expressive arts with them. She was getting a henna on her little henna tattoo. So we had a beautiful woman come in and do henna, which of course you had to put your phone down and she had to sit there. And henna is very soft, and it's almost like getting this sweet, loving meditation and caressing on your hand. Well, her whole system, she wasn't shaking. She was totally calm, breathing. And I went, wow, what a contrast. So it's again being aware and this peace and quiet. It's almost, if you haven't had it for a while, it might be a little difficult to get used to again. And it's important. So however you can do it, try little snippets, go into the country, sit in a park, watch some birds. I mean, start that way. And the more that we can get, it does help rejuvenate us for sure. I mean, that's just a little snippet there, but
Yeah, because it's interesting you say that, because I know so many people, not just women, who, they go to work and they literally sit in the same spot. I mean, I don't know how they do it for like 8 hours. I mean, I'm such a fidgeter that it would be physically impossible for me to do that. But they have they have that anxiety. They get themselves worked up, and they're literally not moving. They're constantly being overfed, overstimulated by what they're seeing on the screen all day long. So it's really interesting that you say that, Elka, and I'm really glad that you've highlighted why it's so important that we self-calibrate, that we check in with ourselves, and we know where we are. And I know you've got a checklist around that, haven't you?
yeah, in the books, I give a checklist. And so to make it easy that you can go through some of these things and ask yourself questions. And the book is about guiding that. It's a book that explains just what we're talking about, and also different types of anxiety, anxiety attacks, panic attacks, social anxiety, different things like that. And then these strategies. And the cool thing that I was mentioning is I created, I want to call it a beautiful 2-page PDF that's free, that listeners can go onto my website, and totally free. And these are techniques that I share with my clients, teenagers, kids of all ages, adults, and there are techniques that are proven. They work. And it's a whole 2 pages, so you can pick and choose. And there's even space on the bottom where you add your own. And when we were talking about the scale, it's really important to know what feeds your cup, and to make those notes and add to that. It might be a favorite song. It might be calling a friend, which isn't on those sheets, but you can add. Sorry.
No, it's really interesting you saying that. And just before we go, I need to tell you, I had this crazy idea. I often have lots of crazy ideas.
Yay.
But I wanted to create a Spotify playlist of all my favorite songs and favorite songs of my guests and clients, 365 songs that make you want to move. And the idea is to have it ready for December so that people can use it as part of their festive celebrations. So please, if I don't ask you, I want you to remember, I need you to tell me the songs that, as soon as you hear them, whether you want to or not, you get that urge to start, moving those shoulders.
Yeah.
Giving it,
Oh yeah, I've got a couple.
So please share that with me so that I can put it on the list. Now I've got stuff from 50s, 60s. I've got classical stuff. So any genre, just I need those songs so that we can build that playlist.
That sounds great.
And what I'll make. Yeah. Honestly, the whole idea is just nuts. But I just thought, why not? Why not? What I will do is I'll make sure that I put a link to your checklist in my show notes, because like you say, I think it's really important that people have tools that help them. And I'm a lazy person, very lazy person. I'm interested in anything that makes my life easier. And if you've got a checklist, you're making my life easier. So I'm all for that. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, 100%. And I believe in that. That's part of my mission is, things don't need to be this difficult. And I think, I wish I would have had me growing up. I wish I would have had the books and the resources. It would have made my early adulthood a lot easier, smoother. I would have felt better. I would have made better decisions. And anxiety for me, it has been debilitating at times in my life. And my belief is it doesn't have to be so difficult. It can be easier. And that's why I do this work. And that's why I put the PDF together. That's why I created the books. I say they cost less than a pizza. And they're there, they're available, and they're easy. And I have had good editors that are very process oriented, so you can follow the exercises and then you can teach them, which is pretty great. And they're portable.
Yes. Brilliant. So, Elka, I want to thank you for joining me today. I want you to thank you for sharing your expertise. I want you to thank you for highlighting what especially us women need to be aware of. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. My pleasure, Cheryl. My pleasure.
Today's episode matters, not because of any grand thing, but because one small step you can take today is noticing just one possible hidden source of anxiety that you may have. I'm not interested in you finding 11, just one.